What's up, guys? It's your boy, the essential John L. Crossfire, aka the real main event, aka the Rogue Soldier, and today you're about to learn firsthand just what it's like to be caught in the crossfire. But above all else, prepare yourself, because in this very moment, today, right now, you are about to be caught in conversation. Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I just had my second COVID jab just a few hours ago upon recording this. So far so good, so keen for those tattoo needles, pub feeds and just straight up shindiggery. I turned 27, fuck I'm getting old. A week ago today, again upon recording this, my copy of Dragon Ball Kakarot for PS4 did just arrive as I was doing my sound check, so I'm super keen for that. Of course I did spend my birthday money on that. Wisely, I hope. My WWE shop order also just came from their $5 shirt sale. Fucking love me a good bargain. But regardless, today, welcome to episode 22 of the podcast. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22. Not gonna lie, I came super close to making that the song of the week, but we'll find out why I didn't do that later on. Anyways, for the time being that you're hearing this, the day that this goes up, I will officially be a married man. I'll be getting married the day before this episode drops, so Mrs. Crossfire will officially be Mrs. Crossfire, but not really, because that's not my shoot name, but kayfabe, brother. But not only that, this episode will actually drop on Halloween. That is my favorite day of the year. I guess I can't say that this year, seeing as how I am getting married the day beforehand, but nonetheless, happy Halloween. I hope you enjoy all the spookiness, eat lots of candy, watch lots of scary movies. And yes, I finally got a label maker, so now I know which button does what. Just wanted to show that off for a little bit. But before we get into this episode, Mrs. Crossfire gave me a full sugar 600ml bottle of vanilla Coke. So I've more than had my caffeine fix, so if I stutter all over the place, like I always do, it's nothing new, but if it's a little worse than usual, my bad. I've been trying to cut out sugar, but been a little bit naughty today. Add the caffeine to that, God knows where that's going to take me, but you get what you pay for. I mean, this is a free podcast after all. Sorry, I just wanted to do that again. But let's get into it. Before we get into all the wrestling, there's all the wrestling this week. But before we get into that, Netflix have just dropped a week ago upon recording this, Season 2 of Sexy Beast. Myself and Mrs. Crossfire, we watched it in less than 24 hours. Although in fairness, there is only 6 episodes, much like the previous season. But I crave more. It's so trash TV, but I'm so here for it. Give me more. Please, Netflix, make a Season 3 of Sexy Beasts. We've also, on Netflix, been watching Superstore. We've watched the entire first season. We're a couple of episodes into the second season, and both myself and Mrs. Crossfire are just loving it. Seriously, if your humor is as dark and as stupid as mine, and you haven't seen this show, go out of your way to watch it, because you're going to enjoy the hell out of it. But straight into it, we've got a lot to cover, so we're going to go straight to the Impact Wrestling Bound for Glory highlights. Impact held their annual Bound for Glory pay-per-view event this past week. Of course, their biggest show of the year. Congratulations once again to Awesome Kong on her Hall of Fame induction. Congratulations to Jordan Grace on becoming the inaugural Impact Digital Media Champion in the Bound for Glory pre-show. The opening video package for this Bound for Glory event was specifically aimed at Josh Alexander. Was very well done, but I was kind of expecting just a little bit more, given that it's meant to be, their biggest show of the year. But of course, they did do a great job of hyping up the main event with that video package. We kicked off the show with the debuting Cassie Lee and Jessie McKay, the inspiration, of course, formerly Peyton Royce and Billie Kay, the Iconics in WWE. They had a live performance for their entrance, Wasn't anything fancy, but I dug it. Of course, they do actually feature in the music video for their new theme song, so that was kind of cool. They were super over with the fans, but I don't like that they were crowned the new knockout champion, or new knockouts tag team champions. There I go, there's that caffeine. I don't like that they were crowned the new knockouts tag team champions in their first match. Like, I get why they did it, pop a rating, but I just feel like Havoc and Rosemary were kind of starting to find their groove as a tag team, but we'll see where it goes. I'm a big fan of both teams, big fan of Cassie Lee and Jason McKay, so I can't wait to see what they do in Impact. And now, because, they are in Impact, because the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships have only been around for such a short period of time, Cassie Lee and Jason McKay are now the first duo to hold both the WWE Women's Tag and the Impact Knockouts Tag. So that's a cool little fun fact, first time ever sort of thing that I'm sure they'll be able to look back on fondly in years to come. The second match was just absolutely amazing. It was a triple threat match between Trey Miguel, Steve Macklin, and El Phantasmo from New Japan. This was to crown a new X Division champion. Of course, the championship vacated by Josh Alexander, cashing in option C so that he could be in the main event for this Pamphlet Glory event. So we were guaranteed a new champion, which is always exciting. El Phantasmo has always just had awesome ring gear, popped super hard for that, and then Trey Miguel just came out with new gear, new entrance, and I just dug the fuck out of all of it. Of course, Trey's doing like a Miles Morales-inspired kind of thing from Spider-Man, but I dug it. Was dope AF. All three guys did a great job playing their part in this match, but ultimately, my boy, Mrs. Crossfire's boy, everyone's boy, Trey Miguel was crowned the new X Division champion. Many pops were had in this household, and he was so damn over with the live crowd as well. Heath's partner was revealed to be Rhino after a few weeks of speculation as to whether Rhino would actually show up, and then Rhino and Heath would go on to defeat VBD, Violent by Design. Chris Sabin entered the Call Your Shot gauntlet as number 1 due to the rules of the Battle Royal a couple of weeks back. Entrant number 2 was a big pop from me, as it was New Japan's Rocky Romero. As I said, big pop. Rocky was actually the first person eliminated in the gauntlet though. Boo earns. We had the Demon from WCW, of course, the Kiss, specifically Gene Simmons inspired gimmick, which popped the shit out of me. Mrs. Crossfire was just like, what in the Gene Simmons is this? And then I explained to her, and she was able to find it kind of funny as well. Madman Fulton, after he'd already been eliminated, came out and attacked Chris Sabin after Sabin eliminated Ace Austin, so I'm guessing they're setting up for a potential Chris Sabin-Ace Austin feud. Hell freaking yes, I'd be here for that. The gauntlet came down to Moose and Matt Cardona. Eventually, Moose picked up the win. Big pop there. Big fan of Moose. Moose can now challenge for any championship at any time in the next 12 months, as per the Call Your Shot gauntlet rules. So kind of like a WWE Money in the Bank thing, but with all titles. The Good Brothers retain their Impact World Tag Team Championships, which does make you wonder. I thought for sure that they were losing in this match. I made an ass out of you and me, I assumed. But, they've beat the Bullet Club now. They've beat Finjuice, I think for the second time in a row. Makes you wonder who, get out of here, New Day. Makes you wonder who's actually going to beat them for the titles. Because, as I said, I didn't see them retaining, but we just have to see where it goes. You got to let it play out. Christian Cage was all fired up in a backstage promo hyping up his title defense in the main event. Deonna Purrazzo and Mickie James had an absolutely fantastic match. This was probably match of the night on the whole card, for me at least. I don't like finisher kickouts just for the sake of it, but this, was kind of like a grudge match built to perfection, so I feel like it worked. We had a "This is awesome" chant, a ref bump, all the drama. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Could have gone either way, but in the end, Mickie James got the win, and we have a new Impact Wrestling Knockouts champion, which again, that was kind of predictable as well, much like Cassie Lee and Jessie McKay earlier in the night with the Knockouts tag titles, but still very well done. Round of applause for both women. Much respect. I look forward to Mickie James versus Mercedes Martinez. I believe that's going to be happening at Turning Point, as per Mercedes winning the Knockouts Knockdown Gauntlet they had a couple weeks back, which I talked about a couple episodes ago. But Christian Cage and Josh Alexander had another really good match, just a fraction, less than the quality of Mickey versus Deanna. But again, that's just, my opinion. In the end, Josh Alexander, again, kind of predictable, but he made Christian tap out to become the new Impact World Champion. Congratulations to Josh for that. You deserve it for sure. We had a very heartfelt moment in the ring. Josh Alexander celebrating with his wife and kid. But just as the show was going off the air, Moose cashed in his Call Your Shot trophy on the same night he won it. And he is the new Impact World Champion. And I popped so hard for this as I actually fantasy booked this exact scenario to Mrs. Crossfire about 3 weeks ago. Now, I didn't know, in my head, if I was to pick a winner, I would have said Josh Alexander. But the way I predicted it was either Christian, or Josh Alexander. Obviously, it's a singles match. They're going to have a banger of a match. One of them either wins the title, whatever, retains the title, depending on what the case is. But I said for sure Moose was going to win the gauntlet, cash in, and Bound for Glory as champion. And I'm pretty fucking stoked that happened because, let's be honest, it's about 2 years overdue. Like, Moose has been getting better and better and better. And just when you thought they were going to pull the trigger, he just kind of went back down. So, very happy for Moose here. I can see Josh winning the title back from Moose at the next pay-per-view in January, which would be kind of apropos because, the whole gimmick, the name of the pay-per-view is Hard to Kill. So it kind of fits with Josh Alexander's walking weapon persona as well. But overall, very good show. Not the greatest, Bound for Glory event we've had. Not as good as the last year or two, but still, a 6.5/7 out of 10. Still worth the $30, that's for sure, even if stuff was, a little bit predictable. And as I said, I do look forward to a proper Moose versus Josh Alexander match down, somewhere down the line. The song of the week this week is an absolute banger, the newest banger by Citizen Soldier. It dropped just yesterday upon recording this. It's a good smack you in the face type of song. The song is called Just Be Happy, yet another song in their Fight the Good Fight project. And as I said, it only dropped yesterday, but I've already lost count of how many times I've listened to it. I love it. I freaking love it. Seriously, do yourself a favor. Go listen to this absolute tune. It slaps really hard. It's got all the feels, and it's also got a good beat, so it's a nice little mixture of things. Again, that song is Just Be Happy by Citizen Soldier. And now for the highlights of WWE's Crown Jewel event, in my opinion, are as follows. The opening video package was really good, as they almost always are. It's well documented on this pod that, for all the things that WWE does wrong, their production is still leaps and bounds above every other promotion, and that's not throwing shade. It's just a fact. We kicked off the action with a match that both myself and Mrs. Crossfire were very excited for, and that was the Edge versus Seth Rollins Hell in a Cell match. And again, the video package for this actual match itself, really freaking good. Edge came out with some new gear. It was to kind of represent the Hell in a Cell match, which was awesome. New jacket. Dug the absolute hell out of it. It was really like, grunge, rock, post-apocalyptic, kind of all of Edge's vibes mashed in, to the Hell in a Cell vibe, I guess, if that makes sense to y'all. The crowd was singing along to Edge's theme song, which was good to see, as sometimes the Saudi crowd has been a bit silent on these shows. Like, I get it's a cultural difference, but having the fans there always makes so much of a difference. But holy hell, what a match. And that pun wasn't even intended. But all the drama, all the callbacks, some freaking brutal bumps. The table bump specifically that Seth Rollins took in this Hell in a Cell match just looked sick. Definitely the best match that Edge has had since returning at the 2020 Royal Rumble. And Edge was really emotional after the match too, so I think he kind of got that vibe straight away. Like, he realized that, holy fuck, I just put in the work sort of thing. It's just a shame that we did have the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view earlier in the year, because this was finally a feud actually truly built for Hell in a Cell. And just as good as this match was, I feel it just would have been even more impactful had we have not had a plethora of other Hell in a Cell matches earlier in the year. Maybe that's just me. Like, I've well documented on this pod as well that I'm just not a fan of gimmick pay-per-views, but I just feel like this match was so good. It's obviously one of the best Hell in a Cell matches, in years. Like, it was worth being Hell in a Cell, but if they hadn't have had Hell in a Cell earlier this year, it could have been so much better. Mustafa Ali versus Mansoor was a great match. Not that anyone was expecting any different. There was a point in this match, though, where there was a really close near fall on Mansoor's end, and because, the crowd was into it, which is great, they kept cutting to the crowd, so they missed this near fall, and it was just like, so frustrating. The Olympic silver medalist in karate from this year's Olympics in Tokyo, who was a Saudi native in his own right, came out and knocked out Mustafa Ali after the match. I dig it. Hometown pop. Whatever. RK Bros' entrance for their tag team championship match against AJ Styles and Omos popped the shit out of me. Some really good stuff there. Matt Riddle being, high as fuck, basically, riding a camel. Some good shit, pal. It was good to hear the commentary team genuinely having fun, too. It doesn't happen too often in a WWE setting, as it's usually business, but some good stuff there. I laughed. Becky Lynch had a really good backstage promo. Zelina Vega won the inaugural Queen's Crown tournament. Hell yes, both her, Zelina, and Doudrop had a very good matchup. I was worried, due to how short, the entire length of the tournament was, that they weren't going to get much time in this match, but they certainly delivered here in this one. Nonetheless, all hail Queen Zelina. Goldberg and Lashley had a much, much better match than they had at SummerSlam. Not overly fond of Goldberg getting the win here. I'm not entirely sure what that does. I mean, Lashley is, the former WWE champion. But I get it, it's fine, pop a rating. That's what they paid for. But by far, hands down, the best match that Goldberg's had since he returned in 2016 as well. Xavier Woods finally fulfilled his destiny and won the King of the Ring tournament. Hell freaking yes, it was a pretty standard match between Xavier and Finn Balor. But the important part here is all hail King Woods, or hail King Woods. Hail King Woods. Fucking yes. Yes, I'm a mark. That's okay. Everyone's a mark. We're all marks. Hail King Woods. I'm ranting, so I'm going to go on to the next one. Big E and Drew McIntyre had a fantastic match. Kind of just felt like filler in the grand scheme of things, which is a shame, given that the biggest prize in the business is on the line, the WWE Championship. But both guys came out. They delivered tenfold. Nice little show of respect after the match. I dug it. The triple threat match for the SmackDown Women's Championship was fantastic, and again, everyone I'm sure expected this. And then Roman versus Brock, was still, pretty good. It was pretty decent. Not as good as some of the, matches that they've had in the past, but there was a few moments of who's going to win. And eventually, Roman retains due to interference from the Usos, but overall, solid show. Probably about a 6 out of 10. Nothing bad, nothing crazy either, but definitely in the grand scheme of all the crown jewel events that they've had in the last couple of years, nothing to write home about, but definitely the best crown jewel event that we've had thus far. In the wrestling news this week, just yesterday upon recording this, Greg Hamilton has been released by WWE. Who could it be now? Nice little callback there for you. It's a damn shame, in my opinion. Like, with all due respect to the guy, I don't think he's going to go down as an all-time great, in terms of ring announcing, but he's still a damn good ring announcer. Like, him announcing, Samoa Joe has become so iconic, at least in WWE's career, especially in terms of his WWE tenure, but it really is such a shame, to see Greg Hamilton go. As I said, I did enjoy what he brought to the table, but be interesting to see who they bring in now. Maybe they'll bring back an old one. Maybe they'll call up a new one from NXT. But best of luck to Greg Hamilton in his future endeavors. But the big news, the really big news this week, and it came out just this morning. I woke up to the news that Ring of Honor have announced that they're doing a complete reset, complete overhaul, overload, repackage, call it what you want. Now, since this is still very fresh, we obviously don't have, all of the who, what, whys, and hows, but basically what this boils down to is that as of Final Battle in December, pretty much any and all talent have been or will be released from their contracts. And as a result, if they wish, talent are now, as it stands, they're allowed to go look for work immediately right now, wherever they see fit. And the company will be going on a brief hiatus after the Final Battle pay-per-view. They're still going to have weekly shows, but it's going to feature, old footage / highlights. But basically what they've said is their plan is they're going to do their usual Supercard of Honor show in April on WWE's WrestleMania weekend, where they're going to bring in, like a fresh look, dare I say, rebrand. So it's going to be interesting to see who stays, who goes, but I'm crossing all my fingers and toes, and that was not meant to rhyme. I do not like green eggs and ham, but I'm hoping, really hoping, that this doesn't lead to the company shutting their doors forever. Now, I personally did think, and I said this to my good friend James Hellfire this morning, that as risky as it is still a smart decision, because with the time off they've had during the pandemic, even though it was forced, everything did still feel really rushed in some different way or another. So it's good for me, at least, and, people might have a different opinion, but for me, it's good to see that they're going to hit the reset button and go from there. But my main concern, my main question is what will happen to the current champions and championships themselves. But I guess, that does remain to be seen. As I said, it's still fresh, but stay tuned, I guess. The match of the week this week, before we get into the Warrior Wrestling portion of this week's episode, is another Halloween Havoc match. Seemed very fitting for this episode. We have Stunning Steve Austin, before he was Stone Cold, what? Stunning Steve Austin versus the Natural Dustin Rhodes at Halloween Havoc 1991 for the WCW World Television Championship. I've always loved the idea of a television championship, having to defend it every single week. Really drives home the point of having a fighting champion. But this is a great old school match, and the storytelling, even Mrs. Crossfire, was just mwah, chef's kiss, the old chef's kiss. 100%. Anyone listening to this episode, as soon as this episode finishes, go out of your way to find this match. Like, it's not, the greatest match of all time. Meltzer rates it 5 stars, but as I said, just the storytelling in this, it's a gem. Again, that match is from Halloween Havoc 1991, Steve Austin versus Dustin Rhodes. And now for the main portion of this show. This episode is going to be a little bit quick, and if I'm talking too fast again, I'm sorry, caffeine, but this episode will be quick because, as I said, by the time this drops, I'll be getting married, so I'm trying to just knock it out of the park, but I'm doing a recap-ish, and I still think I should put that on a shirt, of Warrior Wrestling's Sweet 16 event. We kicked off the show with a quick promo by special guest Bret the Hitman Hart. The fans popped super hard for that. And then match 1, we kicked it off very strong. We had the Warrior Wrestling Championship. We had the Octopus, Jonathan Gresham as the challenger, versus Trey Miguel, the reigning champion. Trey is now Trey 2 belts, as pointed out by Mrs. Crossfire while we were watching this. Now, this match could main event just about any indie card in the world, in my opinion. And we're getting it straight off the bat, straight out the gate, here. Good Lord. The match started with Trey trying to bribe Jonathan Gresham with a pair of Jordans, but they weren't the right size. Funny stuff there. The match started with some basic chain, as expected, given how technically sound both men are, especially Jonathan Gresham, of course. He calls himself the Octopus for a reason. But Trey Miguel would have a burst of momentum before it shifted back into Gresham's favour. Gresham spent most of the contest softening up the left arm of Trey Miguel, of course. One of Gresham's, finishing maneuvers is an octopus stretch, so great psychology there. The commentators did a really good job of getting across the point that this is the opener. And in the opener of the last Warrior Wrestling show, the Women's Championship changed hands. So they got us all wondering, is lightning going to strike twice sort of thing. Trey Miguel attempted to give Gresham a receipt and soften up Gresham's arm. After a bit of back and forth, Trey Miguel would hit his diving meteora off the top rope that he calls Fresh Prince of Midair, but just as the referee was about to count to 3, a group of rookies would pull the referee out of the ring and they attacked both Gresham and Miguel. Frank the Clown would come out to Bret Hart's music, so a nice little troll, nice little swerve there. And Frank would do his best CM Punk impression on the mic and reveal that the attack was actually at his request. Gresham and Miguel, though, would attack the rookies to end the segment. I'm hoping this means we do get another Gresham versus Miguel match down the line where they just let them go all out, go hammer and tong, as Nigel McGuinness likes to say on commentary, as Mrs. Crossfire likes to say as well. But that would be a very good match if they just kind of, let the chains go sort of thing. But match number 2, we had a tag team match. We had KLD and Dan the Dad, or KL Dad, versus Warhorse and Beastman, a.k.a. Beast Horse. And just remember, kids, Warhorse rules ass. Dan the Dad, though, is honestly, low-key, one of my favorite characters in all of wrestling, any and all wrestling right now. We started the match with Warhorse and Dan the Dad, both doing a great job, to get their respective characters over, and the commentary team did a fantastic job during their exchange as well. Beastman got a tag, and we got some good stuff between Beastman and Dan the Dad as well. KLD came in and hit a very impressive spinning heel kick for a big man, followed by a slingshot senton bomb. I wouldn't mind a one-on-one down the line between Beastman and KLD, because they're two really big guys that do what big guys shouldn't be able to do. We got a nice little exchange between those two, though. Everyone, would get their shit in. You get your shit in, you get your shit in. Oprah Winfrey says everyone gets their shit in. But eventually Beastman would take out KLD with a huge suicide dive. And after some nice combination offense on Dan the Dad, topped off with Warhorse's elbow of death, Beastman would pin Dan the Dad for the win, because Beast Horse rules ass. But more importantly, Warhorse rules ass. Match number 3, we had Ring of Honor Women's World Championship. Some nice little interpromotional stuff here. We had Laney Luck, the challenger, versus Roxy, the champion. Two young, semi-green talents, but both very talented in their own right nonetheless. The Code of Honor adhered to, of course. They shook hands to start the match. Some nice chain to start it off. They need to do better, and Laney Luck specifically needs to do better at, hiding their spot calls. But again, they're both green. They're also super talented. Both women showed off their respective athleticism in the early going. Laney Luck hit a wheelbarrow uranagi, which, as basic as it is, was something I don't think I've ever actually seen. It was super cool. Laney also hit the Free Amigos, or I guess in this case, Amigas, a la Eddie Guerrero, of course, Latino Heat, my hero. Unless you're living under a rock, you'd know that by now if you're listening to this. But Laney started to show a bit of a mean streak as well as she started to wear down Roxy. I really dug it, because it was kind of like face versus face. As the match sort of progressed, Laney kind of started to, get desperate and show that mean streak, and it was like, okay, now we've got a defined heel versus face, at least, for this match specifically. Roxy is getting a lot better as well at showing her, babyface fire, and Laney Luck controlled the majority of the pace, rightfully so, as, Roxy, as the smaller competitor, is very much, the underdog, so it's very white meat babyface there. Laney Luck got a really close near fall towards the end, but ultimately, Roxy would retain the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship via submission. Of the 3 matches that had happened so far in the night, this was match of the night, but as I've said in the past, Roxy needs to not rush so much when she is on offense, because she came way too close a couple of times on slipping, especially there was one where she went for a springboard arm drag and she came really close to like blowing out a knee or something. It was just like, ugh. But yeah, really good match all round. Both women vastly improving each and every time they go out there, which is always good to see. Match number 4 was Moose versus Sam Adonis. I've been looking forward to this quite a lot since they first announced it. They started to hype up Buddy Matthews, who would be on the card later in the night, and they called him a New Zealand native, which made me facepalm. He's clearly an Aussie, damn it. But back to the actual match at hand. Both these guys, Moose and Sam Adonis, were very evenly matched in size, almost the exact size and weight. But I think Moose does have more muscle mass, if that makes sense. Adonis did have the clear experience advantage here, though. Both guys came straight out the gate like a bull in the china shop, just back and forth, getting their shit in early, looking strong, brother. They battled around ringside, much to the delight of the fans. We had a quick production error where they kind of went to start airing the Will Ospreay promo again, but it only lasted about a second or two. Didn't take away from the match, thankfully. Adonis chopped the shit out of Moose, and you could literally see the sweat just flying off Moose. And like, as gross as it is, like, it just looked freaking awesome, man. There was a very snug, strong style type heavyweight matchup, and I was just so here for it. Adonis hit, his trademark rope walk blockbuster, and no matter how many times I see him do it, it's always a thing of beauty. It just always gets me that he does it with so much ease. Moose would return in kind, showing off his own respective athleticism with a trademark springboard crossbody followed by a kip up. And then, just for good measure, went back to the power game with a huge powerbomb on Adonis for a near fall. Lots of back and forth, high impact maneuvers. In true Warrior Wrestling fashion, just as I say, one match has been match of the night, another one comes along and just blows it out of the park. Sam Adonis pumping out the bangers lately, and, Moose is obviously no slouch either. But after countering a big Uranagi into a victory roll, Sam Adonis got the win. Like, hell yes, I love Moose, but it's about damn time that Adonis finally got a W, especially here in Warrior Wrestling, especially now that he's a babyface. Like, I could see Adonis being Warrior Wrestling champion, sooner than later. And I'd love to see him over in like an MLW, because him versus Alex Hammerstone would be amazing. Guys like Jacob Fatu, Richard Holiday, Matt Cross, Calvin Tankman, just to name a few, would just be sick. But yeah, Sam Adonis pulled out the victory here. Very happy for that. Match number 5, we had Chandler Hopkins versus Buddy Matthews, formerly Buddy Murphy in WWE. Another match that I've just been so freaking keen for since they announced it. And Buddy's obviously out, to prove that the secret's out. He's no longer the best kept secret because everyone knows how freaking talented it is. So now he actually has to back it up, sort of thing. And Chandler Hopkins, in his own right, he's slowly on the rise here in independent wrestling as a whole. So I hope to see more of him sometime in the near future. The match started off nice and slow with a feeling out process, featuring a couple of sneaky little shots here and there before Buddy really started to take control of Chandler Hopkins. Buddy was very cocky in this match. The fans were very behind him, but he did his best to try and troll the fans to get them behind Chandler Hopkins, but it was still very, 50-50 almost. Hopkins had a nice little pocket of offense that was both impressive and paced really well within the confines of the story that they were telling here in this match. The momentum shifted quite a few times with some nice, strong style strikes, but there was a spot specifically that popped me really good where Buddy Matthews would hit a buckle bomb curb stomp combination, of course. A nice little reference to Seth Rollins, of course, Buddy's, was Seth's disciple in the latter part of his WWE career. So I like that little callback there. Eventually, Buddy would get the win with his trademark snap Death Valley driver. They still called it Murphy's Law on commentary, but I'm guessing that he's going to change the name of it. But that's just a little tidbit. Buddy Murphy gets the win, or Buddy Matthews now gets the win. Pretty good match. Match number 6, we had Josh Alexander versus Calvin Tankman. This match happened just a week before Josh Alexander would challenge Christian Cage at the aforementioned Bound for Glory event. Josh Alexander putting in the work here. He is a warrior. Oh, and again, that pun was not intended, Warrior Wrestling. But yeah, Josh Alexander just putting in the work. And of course, as always, Calvin Tankman is my dude. I really need to catch up on MLW. We've still only watched episode 1 of Alpha, but Tankman looked to exploit, his obvious size and power advantage early on, and that came into effect more so when Josh Alexander was trying to chop Calvin Tankman down, and Tankman just hit a big pounce. Alexander tried to pick the ankle of Tankman, and Tankman, a la Mark Henry and Kurt Angle, just kicked Alexander off, sending him flying out of the ring. I greatly appreciated that little spot. I'm assuming that's what they were referencing, and if not, well then fuck me, it was a cool spot regardless. Tankman very much controlled the pace in the early goings of this match before Josh Alexander would start to use all different parts of his body as a weapon to finally get some effective offense, hence his nickname of the Walking Weapon. Alexander hit a super impressive German suplex on Tankman before Tankman would start to take over Alexander again. We had some nice high impact, high octane back and forth action before Alexander eventually finally got a hold of the ankle, and your winner via submission, via ankle lock, was the Walking Weapon, Josh Alexander. Match number 7, we had a nice little tag team match. We had Pretty Proper, the Savage Gentleman Victor Benjamin, and the coolest wrestler you'll ever meet in Lady Frost versus Janai Kai and top-notch Jason Hotch. Jason Hotch here filling in for Janai's usual partner due to an injury, and this match broke down fairly quickly. Lady Frost and Jason Hotch kind of going tit for tat before Victor Benjamin would attack Hotch from behind, which would bring in Janai Kai, and then all hell just broke loose before Pretty Proper were able to kind of take control after a quick onslaught from Hotch and Kai. And I pop every time Pretty Proper do the tag where Victor Benjamin kisses Frost on the hand. Of course, they are a real-life husband and wife, much like myself and Mrs. Crossfire by the time you hear this. Heyo! Pretty standard match here, a little quick, but I absolutely dug the hell out of the finish. Pretty Proper would pick up the win with a Fireman's Carry 450 splash combo. Lady Frost off the shoulders off Victor Benjamin. Good stuff there. Can't wait to see more from Pretty Proper. Match number 8, we had Davey Richards versus Ace Austin. A nice clash of styles / personalities here. Richards would spend the bulk of the early going just kind of stretching Ace Austin. Austin did his best to hold his own and create space, but the commentators here did a really good job, as they did multiple times throughout the night, just getting all the talent over. But they did a really good job here specifically of getting over the work that Davey Richards has done outside of wrestling as a first responder, especially during the pandemic times. Like, I'm not a fan of his, per se in terms of wrestling, but as a person, as a human being, kudos, to Davey Richards and all the frontline workers out there, especially during this fucking crazy pandemic. But again, they did another great job, this time covering what Davey has been up to over in MLW. Again, I really need to catch up on MLW. Ace Austin would use his athleticism to gain some semblance of control in his own right. But again, Davey Richards, as the veteran here, would eventually, he essentially let Ace Austin just kind of punch himself out. And he got a very close near fall with a double stomp off the top rope, did Davey Richards. I thoroughly enjoyed the pace of this match. It got very 50-50 style offense near the middle to / end of the match. And the fans were completely eating it up. Davey got another false finish with a beautiful brainbuster, but ultimately Ace Austin would tap out to a Texas Cloverleaf, one of my personal favourite submission holds. Little fun fact there by yours truly. But again, your winner via submission, via Texas Cloverleaf, Davey Richards, and they had a nice show of respect after the match. A very common, theme here in Warrior Wrestling I've noticed in the last few shows, similar to what Ring of Honor has done. And, it's all about the sportsmanship, and I really dig that. It's a nice little tidbit, in my opinion. Match number 9, we had Alex Shelley versus Casey Navarro. It's really great to see Alex Shelley back in the ring. He actually not long ago defeated Wheeler Yuta in the last couple of weeks before recording this for the IWTV Internet / Independent Wrestling Championship. And I still kind of really want to see my boy Warhorse get that title back, but that's another story. And I also really hope to see Alex Shelley back in Impact Wrestling sooner than later too, hopefully reuniting with Chris Sabin, because those two as Motor City Machine Guns are honestly low-key one of the greatest tag teams of all time. And Casey Navarro here, young upstart, someone who well documented on the pod that I'm a very huge fan of, and he's probably the most out of probably literally anyone on the indies right now to be a massive star in the future. And at just 22 years of age, he has all the time in the world to develop. But that's just my opinion. Back to the actual match, Shelley tried to control the pace with some technical wrestling. Of course, over the years, Shelley has kind of, become low-key one of the best at technical wrestling after years of being, a high flyer, strong style type of competitor. But Casey Navarro would just come at Shelley with everything he had, showing a bunch of fire, fast-paced offense, almost in like an act of desperation trying to finish it quickly. And the commentators, they did a really good job, once again, getting over the fact that although he is the current Get My Shot Invitational winner, and that means he can challenge for any title in Warrior Wrestling whenever he wants, him being Casey Navarro, pronouns pal, Vince McMahon would hate me. Good shit, pal. He is still no stranger, is Navarro, to taking losses. So it's a very good story to tell there. Obviously, if he was to get a win over someone the caliber of an Alex Shelley, that would more than, boost his profile. Much like the match before here, Shelley lets Navarro essentially punch himself out, and then Shelley just went to work on just destroying the back of Casey Navarro. And of course, that grounds Navarro, who for a lot of his, moveset is somewhat, high-flying, fast-paced. So it slows down Navarro, and it also softens him up for Shelley's offense in general. Go figure. This match was more mat-based than anything, with a couple of little things sprinkled here and there. But I enjoyed the hell out of this match. For the second time on this card, I've now had to change what the match of the night was because, and again, just my opinion, but this Shelley versus Navarro match was just honestly fantastic. And granted, I could be biased because I am a big fan of both guys, but I was just enthralled from this match from start to finish. The pacing kind of yo-yoed in like the second half of the match, but it was really well done. Like they'd pick up the pace to hit the actual offense, but then, they'd slow it down and let you digest it sort of thing. Selling is important, kids. Navarro got a very close pin, but Shelley was able to get his foot on the rope. And after a nice explosive bit of offense on both sides, Shelley would ultimately pick up the win with a big-time air raid crash. Again, just fantastic match. Casey Navarro sold the back afterwards and needed the referee's help to get backstage, but just, start to finish, hands down, match of the night. Just fantastic. And then in the main event of the night, match number 10, we had a triple threat match for the Warrior Wrestling Lucha Championship. Lucha. We had Gringo Loco, the challenger, versus Rey Horus, the other challenger, versus Aramis, the reigning, defending, conquering, undisputed Warrior Wrestling Lucha Champion. And again, since they announced this match, I was so freaking keen. The match started with a whole bunch of quick pin attempts on all three sides, and much like, the other matches in this championship short history, it was all just very go, go, go. Of course, it is the Lucha style. The fans were very receptive / appreciative of the Lucha style, and all three guys, just doing the old get my shit in, look strong, brother, but I was just here for every second of it. It honestly was hard for me to pick who I wanted to actually win this match, because, I kind of want Aramis to hold it on for a little longer, especially because I really want to see Aramis versus Casey Navarro down the line. But I'm also a really big fan of Rey Horus, and I have quickly become a fan of Gringo Loco since seeing him in MLW and in previous Warrior Wrestling events as well. So it was just like, anyone could have won. I just sat back and I just watched in awe of all the crazy shit that they were doing. Gringo Loco hit a double electric chair drop to both Horus and Aramis, having them stacked both up on his shoulders, making pretty much just a 15-foot high tower of human flesh. Probably the most innovative and impressive Tower of Doom I've ever seen. Like, it was just fucking nuts. And then we had all the Spanish flies, spike runners, DDTs, all the action, bodies just flying all over the ring, and not always on their own volition. Rey Horus almost snapped his leg in half on the freaking guardrail off a somersault plancha. Very close call there. Aramis got a very close near fall on Rey Horus after his trademark spinning torture rack powerbomb. Gringo Loco hit a picture-perfect, sexy as fuck, smooth as silk corkscrew moonsault, which for a bigger guy, it just looks dope in hell in general, and the fact that he can pull it off. But he landed it to perfection to boot, got a very close near fall off that, and the false finish is good when both Mrs. Crossfire and I come out of our chairs because it was that close. Ultimately, Aramis would retain his championship after a victory roll on Gringo Loco, but just an incredible match. It's so good to just kind of, sit back as a fan, not care who wins, but overall, I do think that the Casey Navarro and Alex Shelley match was match of the night, but just by a fraction. And that's just me personally being nitpicky, because I love some good old-fashioned storytelling. And I for one, and I know Mrs. Crossfire can't either, I can't wait for the next Warrior Wrestling show that will take place in December. I believe they said it was December 17th? It may have been December 12th. I think it was December 17th. But it is Warrior Wrestling 17. Maybe that's where I'm getting the 17 from. But I'm super freaking keen from that. The show will actually feature Will Ospreay. I know he's a very controversial figure, but he's a super fucking talented dude, and I can't wait to see who from the Warrior Wrestling roster steps up and takes on Will Ospreay. That will bring me to a close for this week. As I said, it's a little bit quicker than the last few episodes I've done, but my bad. I got some wedding shit to do, and I kind of want to play Kakarot in what little downtime I do have. But thank you to those that did bear with me through this very wrestling-heavy episode, of course. That is always the main part of this show, but I've probably waffled on quite a bit in this one specifically. The song of the week was Just Be Happy by Citizen Soldier. The match of the week was Steve Austin versus Dustin Rhodes at Halloween Havoc 1991. As always, check all the links in the description box below for all my social medias, especially the podcast's Facebook page. Buy a shirt at my Pro Wrestling Tee store. Also at the link, got a handful of designs up there, including the Caught in Conversation podcast shirt. Happy Halloween all. I hope you get all of the candy, and happy post-wedding day to myself and Mrs. Crossfire by the time you're hearing this. By the time this is uploaded, I'm probably hungover like a sumbitch. I am the essential John L. Crossfire, and you were just caught in conversation. Going to the chapel, gonna get married.